Okay, I am here this morning again with Yvette, who is going to introduce herself again. Yesterday we did a video on Yoga Nidra, and today we're doing one on breath work. So,
Mhm.
Yvette, why don't you give a little introduction to yourself?
Okay, perfect. Um, I know that I had done a fuller introduction yesterday, but I'd like to share from a perspective of this topic and why we're actually having this conversation, and actually why I'm actually capable of having this conversation at this point. And I would like to now, obviously, as people would have learned before, if they saw the first video, I am your daughter.
Right.
Um, and families, we grow together, we stick together, we can also go the opposite directions. And I'm very thankful the journey that you've been on, of your own journey of exploration, self-exploration, has I've been, pulled along, sometimes willingly, sometimes not so willingly. And I remember when, as being in school, and you having these conversations around Krishnamurti, and Krishnamurti, who never referred to himself as the I or the I am. He typically spoke third party, and kind of like the royal we, when the queen says the royal we will do this and we will do that. And at the time, I didn't really understand it so much, but as I've gotten further into, my own spiritual quest, and the people that, the evolved teachers I've been listening to and following, I understand why he did that. I understand much more, but it was that peppering of that journey that brought me to where we are today. Just, myself, you, and then of course, Nalene, my husband. Um, and like most people who walk around this planet, we breathe. Obviously, they say that you can live 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, but 3 minutes without breath, and you're pushing up daisies.
Yeah.
And and here's the science: it is the only bodily function that is both voluntary as well as involuntary, which I think is extremely interesting to think about, because your heart beats, the blood pumps through your system, your liver does what it needs to do, your kidneys, your organs, your pancreas, your hormones all function. You can't stop them willingly, but you can stop your breath.
Yeah.
And yet, it is, being that it's both voluntary and involuntary, it's the one thing that we take for granted until our breath escapes us. And I remember there was, when we had the pandemic, there was so much fear around people not being able to breathe or put on ventilators, and breath escaping them. And it's at that point they go, oh my gosh, now it's really important. And luckily, because of the journey that you've been on, I'm going full circle now. Because of the journey that you've been on, and I was, first introduced to Yogi Amrita Sai because you took me to Kripalu many years ago, as I think I was maybe 19, 16, something like that. And I didn't get it back then. It wasn't, part of my, oh, this is what I want to do. I just want to be a normal teenager, though. I want to go out and eat hamburgers and French fries, go to McDonald's, hang out with my friends, not go sit in front of a yogi. And then that time passed. And then when you brought me back full circle to the modern version of Yogi Amrit Desai at the Amrit Yoga Institute, and I was compelled by his teachings to want more of that, and then ended up committing to moving there and living in an ashram lifestyle for 3 years. And as part of living in an ashram, you have your spiritual practice. You do breath work, you do yoga, you do a form of meditation called yoga nidra and yoga nidra, um, and you live a very spiritual lifestyle. But it was that breath work which I had such resistance to when I first started practicing it. And the form of breath work that, or breath practice that Amrit has, Gurudev has, is Kapalabhati, which is a very physically engaging practice.
Mhm.
Now, we did it every single day for 365 days a year for 3 years of a Kapalabhati practice. So first thing was the resistance of the mind going, am I doing this right? What am I doing it for? Am I in sync with everybody else in the room? Do I look stupid doing this? All this goes through the mind. And then when you get into the practice of it, you begin to you feel the physical impact of a Kapalabhati practice, of any breath practice. You feel the positive impacts of it. For me personally, the one thing that happened to me as a result of this was that all those years of bronchial problems I'd had since I was a child, you dragging me off to the doctor's office on Christmas Day, Thanksgiving Day for penicillin. And then since there, all those subsequent years of having, lung infections around the weather. And over the course of that very physical practice, getting that much oxygen, not just into my lungs, but into those little pockets in the lung tissue, it cleared out all the old congestion that I'd had from previous lung infections that just had not worked their way out. I mean, not to be gross, but I would have green crap come out from time to time. And I was able to clear all of that bronchial history that had been stuck in my lungs for all these years. I mean, and as you know, my love of my life at sea working on a cruise ship was canceled because of my lungs shutting down because of the chemicals they were using on board. My lungs got compromised. So a mind and a person who is extremely resistant to it, who met and married a man who's extremely passionate about pranayama, breath practice. I actually, maybe now I can say I love breath work and breath practices as much as, if not more, than Nalin, my husband, because
Oh, wow.
the benefit, yeah, I know the benefits, the physical benefits of having it, not just physical, but emotional and mental, all of that has been so greatly impacted. And I can happily say that when I did have COVID, this is a couple of years ago, although I lost my sense of smell, I never got a lung infection. And I attest that to Kapalabhati once a day, 365 days a year for 3 years. I actually am very grateful for succumbing and surrendering to that practice and what it's done for me on a physical, emotional, and psychological level.
So you didn't want to tell people what Kapalabhati breathing is? You're talking about it, but you haven't said,
yeah.
not exactly described it.
Kapalabhati is a very energetic practice, skull breath, because it say it's very clearing of the skull, but it's a forceful inhalation and exhalation. You're using the diaphragm, and any breath practice that's worth its salt is going to engage the diaphragm. It's different than diaphragmatic breath because diaphragmatic breath typically is to calm the central nervous system or the autonomic nervous system, whereas Kapalabhati is to jazz you up. So it's all done through the nostrils. And I will say from science and things that I have studied over the years, nose breathers are generally healthier than mouth breathers. I always tell my students that the nose is the HVAC of the system. It's like your filter, so it keeps all the germs, just catch the germs. So Kapalabhati is a partial inhalation with a forceful exhalation. So it's passive aggressive. And I know that sounds, counterintuitive. And it's done with the eyes closed. You are seated and a straight spine, and everything is forceful again through the nose. So if I do it now, I'll give you an example. I just sit up straight, and just excuse me, I'm going to close my eyes so I can get myself into it. So it gives you an idea of how it gets done. It's all done through the nose, and it's a forceful, passive inhalation, forceful exhalation. but it pumps, the diaphragm pumps the lower lobes of the lungs, so the lungs really get very energized by it. So you're forcing the oxygen into the body. Your oxygen levels will increase, but no matter what, whether it's Kapalabhati or any breath practice that is intentional and done with purpose, is designed to clear the body of toxins. So that's part of that.
Okay. So that's a good description. Uh, and I think we could actually see your some of that taking place up here when you breathe. So you could see
Yeah,
your throat chakra.
yeah, you can, well, it's, you can, if I stood sideways, you could see my diaphragm, like from my belly button, that part, pumping, because
Mhm.
it's like you're just doing a hard pumping. It's really great for your stomach. You get it, it's a great workout for your abs. Intentional, any kind of breath work is going to, diaphragmatic breath is going to increase the digestive juices. It's going to stimulate the vagus nerve to tell the brain that you are looking to rest or rejuvenate, depending upon what you're using it for. So there's so many healthy aspects of having a breath work practice. I know Tony Robbins calls it priming. He starts his day priming, and he uses a form of breath called Bastrika, which involve the body. So you bring the hands up here, and you would inhale up and then exhale down.
With a Kalabate breath, or you do this
It's
with the
yeah,
Kalabate. Okay.
Yeah, so it's the same passive inhalation, forceful exhalation, but engaging the arms is just, and when he does it, let's say there's something that you would like to have, you see yourself having more joy, more happiness, more peace, and so you're literally flooding your whole body via, the
Yeah.
lungs and pushing that, and getting the body to vibrate in a different way, because you can actually feel, again, second half of the posture. He does, let's say, 3 rounds of 10 is a good example of it. So you would do, so 10, and then you would take a nice,
Deep breath.
followed by a nice long sigh, and you close your eyes, and then you would feel the second half of the breath work. You feel the pulsations, and that's the same with Kapalabhati. The second half is to feel the impact that the breath work has on the body, and how cathartic it is.
Well, I understand that from the perspective of even from me, from for anxiety for so many years of how it's shallow. Anxiety is shallow breathing. And as soon as my breath starts to get shallow again, and I sort of I notice it now, whereas I didn't used to notice it,
Mhm.
and go back to breathing deeper.
Mhm. Yeah, having a breath awareness is probably the best practice to have off of the mat, because if you can catch your breath, and I don't mean as in run after it, but just catch yourself how you are breathing in a moment of anxiety or stress. Once you can catch that, and then you can kind of feel in your body where you are holding, and you'll find that where in your body are you breathing from? Am I clenching my fists? Am I gritting my teeth? How is my body supporting this anti healthy breathing that I'm doing right now, and how can I make that change?
So it's the noticing. It's really yoga nidra, the breath work. It's all about noticing what happens, what is happening in the body.
Mhm.
And a lot of people think that their body is just something to carry their head around on. I remember interviewing a woman one time, and I was astounded, but that's how she thought of her body. It was just something that carried her head around. But
Mhm.
the more aware that we become of our body, the more in tune that I think I want to say probably that that's a lot of intuition. I mean, that's what developing your intuition is about, is paying attention to what's going on in your body. It's a tuning fork, so to speak. So
Yep.
how can we use breath work to elevate our consciousness in any way?
Well, from a basic standpoint, absolutely. I mean, the blissful state. See, how do I want to put this? I have two things I want to say. The first thing is if you want to change your mind, change your breath. And that is when the mind is running rampant and it's that, hamster on the wheel, just going, going, going. And you want to step off of that. It's just give yourself an adult timeout. I'll tell my students, if you are, let's say it's the holidays and it seems that, we get forced into these situations, whether it's a corporate party and we're stressed out because we have to look our best. And are we going to misbehave in front of our superiors? I don't mean superiors as being people who are better than us, but, our boss, their boss. And then we end up in holiday parties at families or friends, and introverts are forced to be extroverts, or there are family that we don't exactly just mesh with, it's kind of like this. So how can we modify our behavior, not to adapt to that behavior, but how can we become more calm, more centered, more focused on, being present and not being so stressed out? And just, there's, first of all, you're not going to sit there and say, okay, I need to give myself 5 minutes to breathe. Okay. People don't pay attention to you breathing. So you can just sit there and kind of lean back in your chair and do a counted breath, inhaling for a count of 5, exhaling for a count of 10. That longer exhalation, you're going to be engaging the belly to pull it back towards the spine, empties the lungs completely. Again, triggering the vagus nerve to let the brain know that I'm calm, I'm at peace. And just doing something like that, that's a conscious counted breath, gets you out of the busy mind, gets you out of the anxiety and back into your physical body. And you can go do it in the bathroom, or because everyone has to use the bathroom. So you can excuse yourself from the table and say, excuse me, I'll be right back. And use the ladies' room, and off you go. So when you want to change your mind, change your breath. Absolutely. Because it's some way of getting us to a state of being very centered and being very balanced. But getting and using breath work as finding a place of consciousness, being conscious is just simply being aware. It is taking off the lenses of our preferences, whether we like or dislike, and just kind of being witness, being that neutral position in between a like or a dislike. And that's, to me, is just a current and possible conscious state that is a choice. You choose to be in here versus way out here to the extreme. And I'll use an example. This was a stumper to my students not too long ago. We were talking about bliss, and a lot of them, I said, just remember sometime that you were blissful, and they're like, no, I don't know what bliss looks like. I've never experienced bliss, but you have. Every person on this planet in some way, shape, or form has experienced a moment of bliss. It could be the first time you see your child. It could be, the person that you love. It could be associated with another human being, but it could also be you're out walking in nature. You've slowed down to appreciate the sound of the wind in the trees, the sound of the birds, the sounds of the rocks crunching under your feet, the sound of flowing water. It could be the moments of sitting on the beach and watching the waves crash on the shoreline, watching a sunset, watching a sunrise, watching kittens or puppies, or everybody has something that has triggered that bliss release. And the bliss release is obviously scientifically is the oxytocin being released into the system. And when you find that and you can breathe your way into it, you can flood the whole body with that sensation. And you can do it through breath. Holding your breath is not going to get you there, but that pumping sensation of really facilitating the breath coming through. And if you're looking at really generating it on a stronger level, for me personally, Kapalabhati has gotten me to that because it's very skull clearing. And when it clears the skull in the second half of the posture, the second half of the breath, and the whole body, the whole nervous system is flooded with that tingling sensation.
Yes. Yes.
That to me, and it's an expanded consciousness. I've never seen anybody walk away from doing a couple of bhati practice angry, unless of course they were frustrated with themselves of, it was a new thing for them, but you just kind of float around as a result of it. So conscious breath is a way of reaching consciousness, and it's getting rid of all the crap. It's getting rid of all the static in the system in the body itself, and the energy body, and then the koshas that surround the body, the energy sheets. And when you have it done with an intention, why am I doing this? And so we talked about intention with yoga nidra. Breathwork has an intention of what am I doing it for? And it is cathartic because it gets rid of all that. It's like going from the caterpillar into breaking into being the butterfly.
Nice example. So I know that you had some training with a woman to be certified. Do you want to talk about that training?
Yeah, we went through an integral breath therapy training, and Carol Lampman, who is the trainer, who's the teacher, has developed this, and she has been teaching in Israel for over 20 years and helping people of all ages work through trauma. Because you can imagine being in a war-torn zone. And we talk about epigenetics the other day and how trauma from World War II would be handed down from generation to generation. And so she developed integral breath therapy as a sidebar. So I had mentioned Stan Groth and his work with holotropic breath.
Yes.
So holotropic breath is getting you to almost like a psychedelic stage that you just break through consciousness without the aid of any kind of drugs or alcohol. And with her breath therapy, it is done through an open mouth circular breath practice. She as she teaches, we were born breathing at a certain way, which is a 5.5 second inhalation and a 5.5 second exhalation. That's how we were born breathing. And yet over the years, we have forgotten that. We become conditioned by our parents, by our environment, and we become shallow breathers. And I personally, and I think about epigenetics, I think about for women, especially, we tend to breathe only in the upper chest, maybe the upper lungs. We don't breathe deeply all the way down through. A variety of reasons, for centuries, women wore corsets and girdles and pantyhose, and now it's Spanx. And I've seen stuff on TikTok of these women just trying to squeeze themselves in, thinking to myself, how are you breathing?
Right.
How? And I think about how, magazines have done us a great disservice, women, because, you can't have a belly, and belly breath is so important to calming the nervous system, and can be done naturally without and faster than you can do so with drugs, alcohol, whatever. So, we've have these habits, and we want to undo them. So then we go from the circular breath, and you have a practice, and then you go into this open mouth. That's done with an open mouth. And then we have a practice as a breath exercise. And a session can last, between an hour to an hour and a half at a time, depending upon the person and whether you have to bring them back from the edge or go to the edge and dance with it back and forth. But it's a way of, it's a volume and a speed of breath and a tempo that helps to clear the body of mental, emotional, psychological trauma on levels that we might not have memories of, but the body has held it. So it's working through all of that in order to come out on the other side. But obviously everything's done with an intention as well. Very, very important. So that is a level of getting you through the muck in order to embrace the lotus and, embrace your consciousness fully.
If you practice this long enough, does it actually change your pattern of breathing, like every day? It's like you do the Kapalabhati breath work or any type of breath work. Does that eventually, shall we say, loosen up the muscles around your diaphragm? Do you become more relaxed? Is the after effect a continued state of calm most of the time?
I would say yes, from personal experience and observation of those who I have worked with one-on-one. It creates permanent changes.
That's what I was after, is to ask about that, permanent
Yeah.
changes.
Because once you know something, you can never unknow it.
Yeah.
And you can know it, but unless you have experienced it and brought it into the body and integrated into the body on a cellular level, knowledge is great, but until it becomes experiential, it's just knowledge,
It's not wisdom. It's not
No, it's
wisdom.
not. It's not wisdom. And I believe personally that breath work brings you to that ancient voice, that still quiet voice that's within, that wisdom it's the entry point that gets us there. So it's literally going, from the physical body. It's like you have to go down in order to go up. Coming down into the body to, access the super consciousness can be done through a breath practice.
Well, I think we've covered everything. Is there anything that we might have missed that you would like to bring up?
I would just say for anyone who's listening who might think that this is woo-woo,
Oh, no.
well, there are people who do think it's woo-woo. I would send them to that book, Breath by James Nestor. He wrote extensively. He did a lot of research between he and his partner, and they literally like taped off their noses and became mouth breathers over a course of a couple of weeks, and they saw how their health diminished.
Oh,
By just being solely mouth breathers. And then he also then just became a nose breather. So he taped his mouth closed at night in order to retrain himself. So he was no longer a mouth breather. But I use breath work, and at every class that I teach, I use a form of breath as a practice, breath awareness. And there's one where I will have someone have my group, let's say, start with inhaling to a count of 5, exhaling to a count of 10. Do that until I ask you to stop, and then expand it. Inhale 6, exhale 12. Do that till I tell you to stop, and then go 7, 14, 8, 16. With these longer exhalations, you begin to notice it's like the elevator going up 5 floors and then coming down 10. And as you come down, you're coming back into grounding yourself. You're finding that space of peace. You're finding that the widening of the pause. That is where, creative thought, spontaneous healing can happen within those pauses when the mind and the intellect is not involved. You were talking about free divers before we got onto this call. And I'll tell my students when we're getting into inhale 10, exhale 20, the mind goes, I gotta get hold my breath out for 20. Oh my gosh, you're asking me to do. But there are free divers who can hold their breath out for 12 minutes.
Yes.
12 minutes. 12 minutes. So that's pretty powerful
Yeah.
stuff if you think about it. So
Yeah.
what we're trying to do is minimal compared to that. But when you get into just as a form of a practice, I like to give, as we close, I like to give a couple of things to the audience to recommend that just by closing someone's eyes and focusing on their breath is to explore where the breath lies in the body. Um, can you feel your body move as you breathe, or are you breathing so shallowly that your body is not responding? Because as you breathe, your lungs should be expanding, your rib cage should expand, and then they should contract as you breathe out. And when you think about the origin of your breath, where is it starting? The tip of the nose up into the forehead, down the back of the throat, into the lungs. Think about how your breath flows in and out of your body. Feel the pattern of your breath. If you stay with it long enough, you're going to begin to notice whether your inhalations are longer or shorter than your exhalations. You might get into a rhythm, but then find that you pause, you need to sigh or you need to yawn. Um, and recognizing the pattern, is it just all straight and narrow, or is it kind of fluctuating? Is it kind of a dance of coming and going? Notice about if you have any pauses, or are you encouraging yourself to pause as you're holding your breath in or holding your breath out. Now, if you have high blood pressure, you really shouldn't hold your breath in because it will increase your blood pressure. But find your rhythm, find it and then begin to explore it. Try seeing whether you breathe in longer than you breathe out. We would say from a yogic standpoint, if your inhalations are longer than your exhalations, it means you're taking more of life than what you're giving out. If you are a shorter inhalation and a longer exhalation, by nature, not because you're doing it on purpose, but it means you're taking in less and you're giving out more, and you're giving more energy out than you are taking in. So, but energy should be an equal give and take. So just learning to play with your breath, noticing how you breathe and what it feels like, because I know it sounds rather odd to say, well, what does my breath feel like? But when you begin to find the subtle nuances in your breath practice, it's and you approach it like with a sense of curiosity, as if you were touching your toes for the very first time. It begins to give you a better appreciation of your body and the complexities of the body. So I wanted to give anybody who's listening that opportunity to observe that, and then encourage people to go into finding breath practices, because there are those who can give you a lot of energy. There are those that can calm you down. There are those that can cool your body. There's those who can warm your body up, so that each one has a different impact, but it's still breath awareness. And the last thing I wanted to share is just an example. I had a student who had come to me to work privately, and she was a mature adult woman who kind of had this, well, why bother? My life is going to be over soon. At my age, why bother? My life is going to be over soon.
Mm.
And and we worked with Yoga Nidra. We worked with integral breath therapy sessions, and we alternated them. And sometimes we blend the two together. But if you saw her today and where she is now, engaged in our local community, volunteering, painting, lost weight, the color that her color just transferred, like who she became as a result of doing this practice. And, she, between working with me one-on-one, and then she signed up for the Wim Hof app, and she used his breathing techniques as well. It was truly, when I say cathartic at the beginning of this, it was cathartic, it was transformational, and it just it just spread like the ripple effect, because it's not just us that it impacts, but everybody else who comes in contact with us. So um, so yeah, go breathe.
Okay. There is one question though. You mentioned blood pressure. I know they say that there are some breath practices if you have blood pressure you shouldn't do. Do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, because there will always be some kind of contraindication to something like Kapalabhati, Bastrika breath. Anytime there's something where they encourage you to hold your breath or it's a forceful breath, it's only going to increase your blood pressure. If you figure that the body was designed, when you breathe in, your blood pressure goes up. When you breathe out, your blood pressure goes down, your heartbeat. So you can feel your heart beating, going, increasing, and then decreasing. Inhale, exhale. So we don't want to obviously overexcite the heart. So anytime somebody tells you to hold your breath and you have high blood pressure, don't do it.
Okay.
Yeah. There's that. And, breathing techniques of the inhaling to a count of 5, exhaling to a count of 10. You're not holding your breath. You're just, creating a longer exhalation. But between alternate nostril breath and that 5 in, 10 out, you can actually decrease your blood pressure. So there are techniques that can obviously calm the body down.
Okay. And let's see. Escape Hatch 2 Wellness is your website.
It is, yes. But I don't have any breathing sessions on that. I think I covered, actually there is on my YouTube channel, Escape Hatch to Wellness, the same thing. I had done, because I do a breathing workshop specifically for NCH, for the wellness, health and wellness. So they have me come on and teach to through the HR department. And I do that for their 5,000 employees and do a breath work session, giving them other, it's an actual practice session as well as a tutorial, but it's one of those things. I did record something for the hospital and put it on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much. This was a very informative session.
Thanks for asking. One of again, if there's anybody who exceeded Nalene with enjoying breath work, it would be me.
And that,
Pranayam, one of Patanjali's 8 limbs of yoga.
and that's the one good thing. Definitely. Okay, well, then we'll end our session now then.
Thank you.
Thank you.